November 30th meeting of the Historic Landmarks Commission. First item on the agenda is public comment. I have one speaker slip for public comment, and that would be Mr. Trevor Martinson regarding 29 East Victoria. If you'd have a seat, Mr. Martinson, and I need to limit you to 2 minutes, please.
Thank you.
The bottom button. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason I have been here is there have been some issues on 29 East Victoria that have been, I guess, the neighborhood, but they, I think, have expressed them in their emails to you, so I'm not going to dwell on that. But I think that the changes that have been made on the plans are significant, and they require review by the HLC. Now, the original applicant submitted to the city, and planning corrections included encroachment issues shown on the site plan. This is the original plans. And they were encroachments into the Anacapa and Victoria Street right-of-way. The resubmittal plans addressing the encroachment question moved the existing building northerly and placed a retaining wall and portion of this existing building on the adjacent residential property. Clearly, if this was a new building, we can do that. We can move things around. But when you have an existing building, you can't do that. So I think that the HLC should put this on the next agenda and review this issue, because it's obvious that there are encroachments. And just dwelling on encroachments, here's the problem. If you have encroachments into the public right-of-way and someone trips, falls, hurts themselves, you have a lawyer immediately on the case. And if it's in the public right-of-way, then the city becomes the deep pockets. Even though we have holes in our pockets as a city, we still have deep pockets, and you will be sued. So what happens is you have an encroachment permit which covers the city and our taxpayers from any lawsuit. And I think this is the issue that we have here.
Thank you, Mr. Martinson. We appreciate your
Thank you.
concern. Does staff want to give us a status on 29 West Victoria?
Yes, Mr. Chair. As you recall, this item was taken off from staff review approval and referred to the consent calendar. And I think Mr. Martinson raised some valid concerns about whether the equipment should be adequately screened. Since that time, we did request the commission to allow the item to be referred to staff if we could come up with a adequate screening of the roofing, of the roof equipment. I also requested that in order to help this applicant that we not delay the project and have it returned to this commission, because they would have had to wait 2 or 3 weeks. Unfortunately, in the discussions to try to get an approval, it has taken that amount of time. But we were successful working with Mr. Sharp to get an enclosure that would screen the equipment adequately. Since that time, Mr. Martinson and representing other people have started to raise other issues which we don't believe are valid. This is a simple, minor roof alteration. If we were to elevate every project like this to this commission, you would be here until 8 o'clock at night. So consistent with our guidelines, you do have the authority to refer items back to staff if they meet guidelines. And at this point, Mr. Sharp has assured us that this equipment is adequately screened and does not have an impact to the adjacent properties.
Question of staff?
Just 1 second, Ms. Arias. Commissioner Sharp, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I thought this was all resolved.
Okay.
To the benefit of the neighbors and the applicant. There was a drawing submitted that I was given by Mr. Berman, and I accepted that. I thought that was a reasonable solution and exactly what we had talked about. So I have nothing further to say.
Okay.
And in respect to, if Mr. Martinson has issues with Public Works encroachments, there are avenues to pursue with the city to address those concerns.
That was my
Commissioner
question,
Arias.
because of the encroachment problem.
We don't believe there's an encroachment issue.
You don't believe there
That's
is.
correct.
So you are suggesting then that the applicant go to Public Works and straighten this
There
out?
are ways to deal with those issues through Public Works.
Okay, thank you. Any other member of the public wishing to speak? I will close public comment and move on to the next item. Sorry, Mr. Martinson. Approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of November 9th. I have a motion by Lavoie.
Second?
Second by Sharp.
Questions?
Any additions, corrections, or amendments?
Yes.
Commissioner Arias.
I have, on the item that we had several items that were being discussed, and one of them was the bridge on Mason.
Are you speaking about item number 3, 0 block away
Yes.
West Mason Street?
And at that point in time, I had some discussion with the Public Works Department about making sure that people who were going to be removed from the floodplain would be notified. And there is no indication of this discussion in the minutes. And I since had a discussion with Mr. Lamone, and he has assured me that if we instruct staff to make sure that people who are removed from the floodplain no longer have to pay flood insurance, which is getting to be quite a bit of money, that otherwise they aren't going to know anything that's happened, and they need to know this. And this is involving historic preservation because many of the buildings in this area are old and are important in historic preservation. And if you have a choice of paying flood insurance or not paying, and not maintaining your building and things like this, money's tight these days, and people need to know if they're buying something for nothing. So I would urge that the Commission, one, make a statement to Mr. Lamone to make sure that these people are informed that they are out of the floodplain. The second item was that we had a discussion regarding the width of the road, and I asked for the facts from the Public Works Department why the road could not be reduced to one way. And we were told that they had been decided in another committee. Well, I want to know why, the facts, on the basis because making the road narrower would enable the tree to be saved. And so I would like to have that indicated in the minutes, as well as the fact that Mr. Lamone will see that these people are informed that they're out of the floodplain. The last item I have on this issue was there is a building that's slated for demolition that has been modified, and research shows that the modifications or changes to this building were approved by Landmarks, a previous Landmarks Commission, which brings a circular argument that if we approve changes on a building, then can we demolish it? Because we've approved changes. So I think that's a sticky little wicket that we better look at carefully. But I would like to see a statement in there that Mr. Lamone will see that the people who are out of this floodplain are informed, and that we have an item asking that the width of the road, that the road be one way, be included in the minutes.
Okay. So perhaps, if I may make a suggestion, Commissioner Arias and staff, we could add after the action in the minutes just a statement of Commissioner Arias's concerns, and that way it's memorialized. But it's not part of the motion.
I would like the concerns stated as specifically as what they are, not just vaguely concerns.
That's fine, and I think staff can get that language from you.
Thank you.
But it wouldn't be part of the minutes because it's not really, or part of the motion because it's not really in our purview. I understand your concern, and we're going to address that by adding it to the minutes.
I think both of those are in the purview, frankly.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioner Arias?
No, that's all.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I can respond on the Mason Street project.
Yes.
I have since spoken to the Public Works staff, and they were concerned that they didn't have adequate time because of the time constraints last meeting to make an adequate presentation, and that might be a concern for them too, to be able to give you enough facts so you understand the decision-making process in order to what led to the design.
We did rush their presentation a bit, but they had ample time.
Well,
I believe.
they didn't believe so,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
That's fine.
We are placing it back for additional review next
Good.
week.
Good.
And hopefully they'll have some additional information
Great.
that will give you some background on what decision-making has been made up to this point.
Okay.
A question, Chair.
Commissioner Arias?
Then how are you going to handle the informing people that they're out of the floodplain and don't have to pay flood insurance?
Well, that would happen much later than next week's meeting.
Staff.
Oh, well, that I don't know.
Mr. Arias, any request of a commissioner to investigate or request that a department be notified of this concern will be passed on, and we will continue to have monitoring and reports back to you on how successful we
So
are on
I
that.
have to make a motion separate after this?
No,
or-
ma'am. You have already indicated staff to make that request of Public Works, and we're going to initiate that conversation
Okay.
with them.
I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Arias. Thank you, staff. Moving right along, any other additions, corrections, or amendments? Commissioner Lavoie.
On page 7, thank you to staff for keeping all of the motions correct and in order, and for bearing with me through that process. But on the last motion, I'd like the record to show that I voted in opposition to it. The count is right.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Sharp.
Page 4,
Uh-huh.
902 Chapala Street, the first item in the motion says the architecture is acceptable as presented. I really question as to whether or not that isn't overreaching. It's just a broad statement that could be construed as the whole project is acceptable. And I don't feel, in my estimation, I think maybe the architectural detailing or something more broad, but to say that the architecture, which
Either Ms. Feliciano or Ms. Gantz.
Mr. Chair, that was actually stated as an item in the motion. So unfortunately, we won't be able to change that.
okay, that I just don't want the applicant to feel that if the project is real close.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I made the motion.
Yeah.
Be very clear about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I recall that as well, and I was on the other side of the table, but so I don't know that that counts.
Good.
Commissioner Murray.
Just a small things. On page 3, number 2, under subcommittee reports, I just want to say Ms. Arias reported the historic resources element subcommittee. Just add the resources. The other thing I want to address is Ms. Arias, Commissioner Arias had talked about photographs.
Same page, item number 1.
Same page, item number 1. Photographs about in the archaeological report. I brought my MEA guidelines and just want to be sure that we all know. It says include historical photographs of the site if available, with labels stating date of the photograph was taken if known, and the point of view of the photographer. Contemporary photographs of the site are required, including surrounding streetscape, with labels stating the date the photograph was taken and the point of view of the photographer. Color photographs are required only when the color of the site, structure, or object has bearing on the significance of the archaeological resources at the proposed project. So that is definitely, requirement. So.
Okay. Thank you for
Mr.
that,
Chair?
Commissioner Murray.
I
Ms.
believe,
Gantz?
yes, I believe Michael Berman, our environmental analyst, responded to this question directly to Ms. Arias.
I believe that's the case. Ms.
And-
Arias probably received a phone call from Mr. Berman.
Right, but
An email, actually.
Email.
But the bottom line was a photograph of the house is not always
Only when
going
it's
to be
germane
needed.
to
Exactly.
the project or the report, the
Thank you,
archaeological
yes.
report.
Correct.
I understand that. Okay. Anything else, anyone?
So I have a question. Where does it stand? Do we get a photograph or not?
If it's germane to
And
the
who
project,
decides if it is germane?
the person conducting the report, who are trained professionals, just as you are a trained professional. Page 5, item 3, under the motion number 3, I think it would be better to say, instead of slant the sloped banks to the extent possible, it should say slope the banks of the creek to the maximum extent possible. Okay? Page 7, item 4, under the second failed motion, number 3, it reads, the architecture is not compatible with the EPV guidelines and charter and is appropriate for the neighborhood. I don't know that that makes sense. That seems contradictory. I think it should say is inappropriate for the neighborhood, if that's what you meant. And then under the motion that passed, item 2, the proposed parking setbacks are supported. Not just the proposed setbacks are supported, but the proposed parking setbacks are supported. That's all I have. And thank you for the excellent job again on the minutes. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to then. Oh, we had a motion by Lavoie and a second by Sharp. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Abstention by Drury. Consent calendar. Ms. Gantz.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item A at 39 West Victoria Street was final approval as submitted. Item B, 114 Natoma Avenue, is final approval as noted. Item C, 1800 El Encanto Road, comments were given, and that item is continued to next week's full board meeting on December 7th. There will be two separate hearings. The first hearing will be for your consideration to place that structure on the city's list of potential historic resources, and then the item itself afterwards for a concept review.
Okay.
Item D, 424 State Street, was final approval as submitted. Item E, 1111 East Cabrillo Boulevard, was final approval as submitted. Item F, 731 De La Guerra Plaza, was preliminary design and final approval as submitted. And those were reviewed by Commissioner Sharp with the exception, Commissioner Schallenberger, with the exception of item A, which was reviewed by Commissioner Sharp.
Okay. I thank Commissioner Schallenberger and Commissioner Sharp for taking care of the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to ratify the consent
Okay.
calendar.
We have a motion by Boucher. Second by Murray. All in favor? Aye. Okay. I need to open up the approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of November 9th again, and Sudi needs to abstain from a few items. And that would be, excuse me, item number 2, 902 Chapala, and item 4, 1722 State Street. Thank you. Moving on, we will go to announcements. Request by applicants is for continuances. Ms. Gantz.
Yes, Mr. Chair, item 2 on the agenda for 517 Chapala Street has been postponed to January 4th of 2012 at the applicant's request.
Okay. Can I get a motion before you finish?
So moved.
Motion by Boucher. Second. All in favor. Second by Sharp. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you, Ms. Gantz. Continue.
All other items will be reviewed 40 minutes sooner than indicated for members of the public who might be watching. There's a correction to the project description for item 4 at 1216 State Street. The bus enclosure walls are proposed to be 5 feet tall, not 15. So in case there's some members of the public who are here about that 15-foot tall wall. The first designation subcommittee meeting of 2012 will occur on January 18th at 11 a.m. in the Housing and Redevelopment Conference Room on the second floor of 630 Garden Street. And then the quarterly designations and the survey subcommittee meeting dates have been scheduled for 2012, and as you all know, I've emailed those to you. So if anybody in the public wants to know about those meetings, you can contact me or go online. And that's all I have, and I believe Mr. Lamone has something.
Mr. Lamone. Thank you, Ms. Gantz.
Mr. Chair, we do have 3 landmark designations that will be occurring next Tuesday at City Council, and I would like to have representatives of this commission there to support this designation.
I see Commissioner Boucher and Commissioner Murray volunteering.
That'd be great, and I'll inform you as soon as we find out when that item is on. Also, we are going to be recognizing Mr. Jacobus officially at City Council for his pending retirement, and so I think that we'll have a nice little ceremony at the end of this designation, thanking him for all his years of service and his commitment to preservation in this community.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Boucher.
I would just like to say that I think as many of us who could possibly attend should.
Okay. Do we have an approximate time?
I would say late afternoon, 3:30, somewhere in that time frame. But we can pass the email out once we know.
That would be good. Thank you. I agree. As many people that can afford the time to attend should attend. Mr. Jacobus is and was a valuable member of this commission. Anything else, Mr. Lamone?
No.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Boucher?
I have an announcement. I have to leave at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
And I also have an announcement about the upcoming social event.
Uh-huh.
Not everyone has signed up, so I'm going to pass this sheet and sign your name if you're not on this list. and say how many are coming, 1 or 2 or whatever.
Okay.
And then I'll just pass this where people can bring
Okay.
whatever they want to bring.
Did Commissioner Rios already get it?
Pardon me?
Did Commissioner Rios already get it?
She said she's not.
I'm not
Okay.
going to be able to attend the party.
That's a shame. Any other announcements?
I have to leave at 5 o'clock also.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Drury.
I do. When I got back from Nevada, I had an educational experience, and it involved an applicant, Jay Hockhauser, who called me up
Is your
and came
microphone
over,
on? Thank you.
came over to my house with the plans for 1722 State, which I reviewed, and gave him my comments. It's not unethical or illegal, but it is not encouraged, and I found that out from Ms. Gantz, and I think that Mr. Hockhauser found out the same thing forthwith.
Thank you, Commissioner Drury. Anybody else? Commissioner Schallenberger.
Chair, I'll be stepping down after item 3 today due to conflicts of interest.
So we are losing 1, 2, 3 people. We have 8 today. Yeah. Okay. All right. I encourage commissioners to make amendments to their schedules to allow for full attendance of these meetings. I realize it is a volunteer position, but when you signed up as a volunteer, we expected that you commit your whole afternoon to this meeting, no matter how long it takes.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
On that note, I have to leave by 8 o'clock tonight.
Good. I'm sure I can accommodate that. Okay. And I realize that schedules change and schedules are difficult to maintain, but let's all try to stay for the duration of the meetings.
Be done by 5.
I hope so.
I have to step down because of conflicts with the
Sure.
applicant.
Yeah, I understand. One announcement, I received correspondence from Tanny Keeler Hodgetts regarding the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History. I'm not sure other people got a copy of it, but in summary, you did? Oh. Okay, well then in summary, Kent and Tanny are 100% behind the desire to increase the size of the current museum, but they acknowledge the long hours that have gone into the planning thus far, but they do not support the current plan as proposed. Okay, anyone else announcements? And I'll move on to subcommittee reports. Anyone? No? Okay, then we'll move on to the first item of on the agenda, and that's an archaeology report. Item number 1, 2417 Medcliff Road. Staff, Ms. Gantz, please.
So, Mr. Chair, Dr. Glassow reviewed the report and concluded that the archaeological investigation supports the report's conclusions and recommendations that, as the proposed project wouldn't have potential to result in significant impacts on either prehistoric or historic archaeological resources, no mitigation measures are required, and that the standard condition regarding the discovery of unanticipated archaeological resources apply to the project and shall be on the plans prior to building permit issuance.
Accept the report.
We have a motion by Boucher,
Second?
second by Lavoie. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item number 3, which is 40 East Anapamu Street. This is a new item for concept review, a proposal to upgrade both the landscape and hardscape areas in front of the Santa Barbara Public Library and the Faulkner Gallery along portions of East Anapamu and Anacapa Streets. The improvements would include approximately 3,200 square feet of additional hardscape, 500 cubic yards of imported fill, a reduction in turf area, and in total trees from 49 to 30, a new fountain, seating, sidewalks, so on and so forth. We have an applicant here. Welcome. Please give us your presentation.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Irene Macias, and I'm the Library Director for the Santa Barbara Public Library System. In this capacity, in my previous role of Library Services Manager, I've spent about 15 years listening to library users, other community members, and library staff make suggestions for enhancing library services. And because a significant number of these comments I've received relate to the library plaza and the difficulty of using it as a public space, we've looked for ways of addressing this issue, and we're pleased that the Redevelopment Agency has provided funding to move forward with the renovation of the plaza, and excited about the ability to create a more welcoming and inspiring space, one that includes art and has the flexibility to be a quiet place for contemplation or a suitable place for community celebrations and events. We're interested in enhancing the entrance to the library as the Anapamu Street entrance is barely visible from the street currently. And we also want to activate the space by holding library programs in the plaza, including programs for children. And we want to see it as a community space that can host art shows, book festivals, and receptions. And so we're very pleased with the concept design provided by Campbell & Campbell and look forward to your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. The button on the bottom, there you go.
Good afternoon, Chair Suding and Commissioners. I'm Peggy Burbank, Redevelopment Specialist with the City's Redevelopment Agency, and I'm going to give a brief presentation, and then it'll be over to you for comments, your comments and questions. In addition to Irene Macias, the Library Director, we have both Doug and Regula Campbell from Campbell & Campbell here to answer any questions you would like, and also my supervisor, Mark Aguilar, is in the office.
He's over there.
Right, and also Roger Hiles, the manager of library services, who is also on the project team. So. Okay, I'm hoping to take no more than 3 minutes. Before I start, though, I would like to hand out 3 sets of additional pictures. It occurred to us as the Historic Landmarks Commission we should provide you with some historic pictures of the library.
Appreciate that.
So I'd like to address my comments to mainly page 4 of the concept plans, which is basically the concept plan, if you want to put that under the microscope.
The concept, this.
Yeah.
Or let's leave those on for just a little while longer.
Okay.
And then we'll go to.
Okay. Well, I don't need that just now. But when I do address the concept, I thought it might be a good idea to have it there. So first of all, just there was a sort of an information page included in your packets that identified the purpose of this project, which the director has really already covered, and then desired features of Library Plaza relating back to that purpose. A design project timeline, and then a timeline, I should say, of library development, and the photos sort of relate to that last piece of information the ones that I just handed into you. So the desired features of the library for that were taken into consideration for this concept, and this is like the first drawing. Is the result of not only the library's expressed needs, but also the results of a interdepartmental meeting between the police department, Parks and Recreation Department, Planning Division, Public Works Department, RDA, and the library. At the very beginning of this project. And then subsequent to that, Campbell & Campbell put on 2 workshops for the public to participate in this project and give us early input. And I just want to remark on the fact that through these various meetings and process, there's been a considerable amount of consensus by both staff and the public on what they feel is needed in improving the improvements for Library Plaza. So it's been a very good public process to date. So today we're here. This is our very first meeting with you. We're here to seek your guidance for moving the project forward. It's just a concept design, and as I said, it's sort of the first one. And the pictures that I gave you are the historic photos are. There's 3 photos of the library over time from when it was built in 1917 that show the Anacapa Street side predominantly.
Kappa being there.
Yes. And then Anapamu over there. And then the last 4 pictures are primarily of the west side, the plaza side, if you will, that from approximately, say 1920, 20-ish, through to about 1970, 70-something, before the latest, the major expansion occurred in 77 to 79, and the latest configuration of that plaza and entry area. In fact, I don't think any of the pictures show the current joint shared entry foyer. Up until 77, or actually the library didn't reopen until 80, the library and the Faulkner had separate entrances that went straight out to Anapamu Street. So I did just want to express a few comments, make a few comments about the proposed consensus, but if you want to wait until we get to that page, if that's your preference, I can wait to make those comments, to introduce it at that time.
Ms. Burbank, let's hear them now.
Okay, could we turn to page 4 then?
Yep. Page 4?
Yes.
Okay. If everybody would like to turn to page 4, and if you could wait until everybody gets to that page, Ms. Burbank.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. So in the information sheet that I had provided, we gave the purpose and we talked about the features that were desired, as had been expressed by the library, other departments, and the public. And they were a large area for library activities and other community activities, a more visible entrance to the library from the Anapamu Street side, a sense of openness and the reestablishment of sight lines across and through the plaza area to make it more interesting. This mainly came from members of the public. They wanted things that attract you into the site and to the library, and points of interest, places to sit in the shade and contemplate the fountain, or a piece of art, or to have a coffee cart there to pick up a coffee as they go to and fro. And a lot of people wanted the historic front door to be opened up so that it was more visible and could be enjoyed. They called for its preservation, but this project does not touch the buildings. It's strictly a landscape project, so we can only make a recommendation in that respect. And then lastly, to hold, or if possible, lower the maintenance cost for maintaining the grounds of the library. Oh, and by the way, I might mention that this is library grounds. This is not actually a park, although Parks and Recreation do the maintenance for the grounds.
Lucky you.
Not me. So what I just wanted to point out in conjunction with those features was this is the first drawing that's taking into account all the comments that we've received to date, and I just wanted to hit on 4 key features. First of all, of course, can you hear me still?
Yeah. Keep your mouth close to it, though. Is
the direct entrance from Anapamu Street. This is Anapamu and Anacapa Street. The direct entrance from the sidewalk into the current entrance, which will remain. No changes will be made to the buildings. So that was one feature that was desired. The second one is the large space for having activities, library activities, book fairs or literature festivals. Also, the Art Museum has expressed interest in using that for sculpture shows, and then other community events could take place there. The third area that I wanted to emphasize is the idea of opening up the historic door so that it's more visible and can be enjoyed. And what is contemplated here is perhaps a work of art could go there, some seating there, and removing the large junipers that currently obstruct the door, so that would kind of become another small seating area. Possibly people could hold discussion circles there, book circles or poetry readings or something like that, but mostly it's the idea of being able to contemplate and enjoy, even as just a passerby, that door. And then lastly, I want to mention the fountain. And the fountain plays an important role in this proposed concept, and that is it not only adds a feature of interest, and the idea being that it would sort of harken back to the original reflecting ponds in front of the Faulkner Gallery that led out to the street. So the idea is that it would be more of a reflection pond than the fountain that's there presently, although it changes the axis. But it perhaps would have a fall off of the higher level down to the lower level, so that it would be an area of interest. But just as critically, just as importantly and critically, it also solves a very tricky grade issue. The idea of the ability to provide a large flat area for activities means leveling the site. That means there would be no further cut into the project area, but there would have to be about 500 cubic feet of imported fill to this area. But still, the grade differences are such from the corner of the two streets down to the lowest part of the project area that what the fountain does is it reconciles the plains and slopes away from the front door in multiple directions, so that there would be steps on one side of it, but it would be universally accessible on the other side of that. So those were sort of some of the key points of why you're looking at this particular concept design, both as a result of the library's needs, the other departments' expressed considerations, and public input. This is what Campbell and Campbell have come up with.
One more piece was the widening of the Paseo and the lighting.
Well, that's right. There's quite a few other details. I just wanted to highlight sort of those four things. But yes, there was a lot of concern expressed about making the Paseo through to La Arcata more inviting and a little bit more friendly. So that has been proposed to be widened by about 3 feet. I mentioned artwork and points of interest. The mysterious nook in the library building was identified as a possible place for sculpture, as well as in front of the historic front door. There's seating. People wanted seating in shaded areas, so this would be a large accent tree that would provide shade and a shaded seating area, as would occur over here. And people were interested in an information kiosk that maybe could advertise library activities and events, as well as perhaps art events around the cultural district, which the library is in the center of. And so the possibility of having an information kiosk out towards the sidewalk. Yeah, that's enough from me.
Great. Then I will open public comment. We have 11 speakers, so I'm going to have to limit you to 2 minutes apiece. And the first to speak is Mr. Robert Burke. Following Mr. Burke will be W. Scott Burns. So if you prepare yourself, get up to the front row so that you can jump up to the microphone. Mr. Burns. Okay. I will read his comments at the end. Go ahead, Mr. Burke. Following Mr. Burke will be Eric Kong. Okay. Thank you. Have a seat, Mr. Burke.
Thank you.
I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes.
I thank you. My name is Robert Burke. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for your attention. My concern is not so much the plaza development itself, but the financing. I'm assuming you all received my letter and the secondary letter as well. This might be the right project, but it's the wrong money. This is redevelopment agency money, And if you look through the codes, both for the city and the state, they clearly state that you have to have a blight. The Library Plaza is not a blight. It may be tawdry, but it is not a blight. This is not just my opinion. This is a legal issue, so I consulted someone who has expertise in the area, who is a lawyer and has expertise in this area, and that person agreed with me that the appropriate funding would be from the city and not from the redevelopment agency. The other issue that I raised is, do you have the purview to look at this item as the legality of the funding of it? And if you look at the city mandate for commissioners and boards, is that you will be thorough in your discussion. So I would present to you, it is your duty to investigate or at least pass on whether the funding for this project matches what the codes state that they should be. The issue, as far as I'm concerned, is people, not plants and concrete. The library director did mention before that the problem of the homeless is there.
30 seconds.
You have $2 million to be used for blight. It should be directed to the police department or housing for the homeless. Personally, I agree that the library is not a hotel. The plaza is not a residential area, but those issues are to be addressed with people issues, as people issues, and not to be addressed with plants and concrete. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burke. We appreciate your being here. Next is, Eric Kelly, followed by Larry Feinberg. Mr. Feinberg, if you get ready, please.
So my name is Eric Kelly. I have, for the last 32 years, been the owner of the Book Den, which is immediately across Anapamu Street from the Library Plaza. So I have a great deal of interest in what goes on there. And I might disagree a little bit about blight from the previous speaker because I've been calling the police regarding illegal activities. And I don't have any problem with the people there. It's just the activities that go on there. And the current configuration of the plaza helps and abets drug dealing, drinking, and fights, and so on. So I like the new plan. I'm totally in favor of it. I've also been involved in using the Library Plaza in the past. I have attended the Santa Barbara Book and Author Fair, which is held there. I also note that the Santa Barbara High School's VADA program uses it for First Thursday exhibits quite often during the year. And the idea of making this space more contiguous and more amenable to community events is very important to me. Then likewise about opening up the view of the front door, I can't tell you how many times I have told people how the hell to get into the library. And we're standing there looking across, and I say, no, you got to go over there, and when you get down there, you will see it. So I'm very much in favor of that aspect of it as well. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. I'm going to totally ruin this name, but it's Kong from the Santa Barbara Museum of Art.
I think she
is. Okay, so you'll be following Larry Feinberg.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'd just like to say that I'm Larry Feinberg. I'm the director of the Santa Barbara Museum of Art, and I just wanted to voice our very strong support for this project, for the concept design. I think it's going to be a great boon to the community. We completely agree with that the spaces could be much better used by the community, including better used by us and the library, particularly in joint programming for the community. I also strongly agree that the design will bring it back to will restore a former beauty to that site. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feinberg. Following Ms. Kong is Ginny Brush.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak briefly. I just would like to reiterate what my director, Larry Feinberg, has just said about the importance of rejuvenating this space. It not only has to do with the perceived sense of safety. This is a high-traffic area for families with children, parents, and it's really of paramount importance to both cultural institutions that the area at least be perceived as absolutely safe and assured. And I can testify that on a daily basis we do have incidents, and I myself have personally felt a little bit insecure in walking through certain portions of the current plaza. So I reiterate what Larry said just now, that the design is an excellent one. We're very pleased that so much care was taken in listening to the community and its perceived desires for an openness, for more light, and for visibility. And we feel very strongly that this will be a productive thing for the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kong. Ginny Brush, followed by Steve Cushman.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I wanted to read a letter that is from the City Arts Advisory at its October 20th meeting of the City Arts Advisory and Visual Arts in Public Places. The committee voted unanimously to write a letter of support for the current Campbell and Campbell general plans for Library Plaza. Staff and a number of members attended the public meetings held by Campbell and Campbell and city staff to review and give input. Of particular interest to the committees are plan changes and design elements that would serve to make the area a vibrant cultural and community-friendly space in the heart of the Cultural Arts District. City Arts Advisory and VAP members strongly support the following: plans to include public art elements in or around the fountain and or areas for public display of public sculpture, and the possibility of including art elements in new proposed bike racks. Inclusion of areas related to literature or library activities, and a designated place for recognition of the city poet laureates was also something that they were very much interested in. Areas designed for informal presentations and cultural gatherings such as storytelling, poetry readings, and different kinds of cultural events between the museum and the library, they thought were very great ideas. And flexible seating, movable tables, chairs, and refreshment carts are something that they also were very much in favor of. And I can leave a copy of this letter if you'd like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brush, for coming. Steve Cushman, followed by Mary Louise Days.
Chairman Sitting, members of the Commission, Steve Cushman. I'm president of the Chamber of Commerce in Santa Barbara, and we support this project. I think it's a great design team. Did you give us the entrance to the LA Library? That's what I thought. Thank you. So that's a fabulous entrance to a library. I'm a big supporter of our library. The Chamber is behind this project. We know that working with you, you'll refine it and make it even better than it is. As a producer of many events on this site, the changes that you're making will make this a much better location whether you're producing an event for kids or a book fair. This will link the lower access area in front of the museum to this space in the library and make it much more compatible for larger scale events. So we encourage you to support the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cushman. Mary Louise Days, followed by Lynn Meissen. Thomas Cian.
Mary Louise Days, local historian, and I'm very encouraged to see proposals to better reveal the original door and to return some of the low water features that were part of the original Faulkner Gallery design. I am not in favor at this point of removing some of the major eucalyptus trees which are part of the cityscape and the skyline now. I think it's an excellent idea to provide for more public gathering spaces, but I caution against any type of over-design with or cluttering of the spaces with permanent objects which might obscure the buildings or the opportunity for gathering places. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Days. Lynn Tomasian?
I answer
Followed
that.
by Callum DeForest. Mr. DeForest, if you could please get ready.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I appreciate being able to be here. I'm here as the family owner representative of La Arcata Courtyard and the building on 1100 block of State Street we wholeheartedly support the library plaza renovation concept. Its current design is, it seems to encourage and is a magnet for public vagrancy, exposure, illicit drug use, and other habits I don't need to go into. One of the reasons that I do say this is because our staff has been taking care of the fountain ever since Mr. Peterson gave it to the city. Our staff has been keeping that clean, trying to keep that clean. As you know, La Arcata represents 24 locally owned businesses, shops, galleries, restaurants, and a lot of interactive sculptures in the courtyard, something that Mr. Peterson had hoped would be very family-friendly. But, and as the facilities director, for me, public safety is very important. And the dark corridor with the half walls that go between Anapamu Street and that one entrance into La Arcata, although it is a back entrance, but nonetheless one of our 3 entrances, it's not only a blot on the landscape, but an unwelcoming, unsafe thoroughfare, and a place where families, tourists, and community members do not feel comfortable traversing. So it's my pleasure to be able to be here and to say we wholeheartedly support this concept.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. DeForest, followed by Eric Friedman.
Good afternoon, Councilman Forrest. It's on. It's on?
No,
No, it isn't on. I'm sorry. Look, yeah, I should certainly know. I am pleased with this design, and I think it's badly needed. And I would like to see the historic Faulkner Gallery building be celebrated and not hidden as it is sort of today by trees and shrubbery. That is an important historic building to Santa Barbara. I guess it is. I don't know whether it has landmark designation or not, but it certainly should. And I appreciate the return to the low reflecting pools. I realize they didn't work, and they, in my day, I don't know quite when they got converted to plant beds, but the use of the water feature is very important as an architectural statement. And I, for the preservation of the eucalyptus trees, which provide a vertical element in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeForest.
Mr. Chair, I just need to ask if anybody is parked on this side of that metal fence out there, they need to go move their cars, please. We've got building inspectors coming back with city cars, and those are reserved spots for city cars. So if anybody, I don't know if maybe nobody here, but if anybody, even commissioners, if anybody's parked on this side of the metal fence out there, you need to go move your cars. Thanks.
Does anybody need time to move their car? Okay. Mr. Friedman.
Good afternoon, Chair, Sitting and Commissioners. My name is Eric Friedman, and I'm the chair of the city's Library Advisory Board.
Welcome.
Thank you for the time to be here today. And I just wanted to go over a couple of issues that the Library Board has considered. Number one is this project actually would keep or go back to a more historic look for the Library Plaza. You've seen that. And then also echoing the comments of the fellow public speakers today, it would make the library part of the Historic Cultural Arts District, beginning with the Arlington, the Granada, the Museum of Art, and then also the courthouse. And then lastly is the issue that I think is really paramount to this design is the eucalyptus trees. We studied that carefully at our board meetings, and the reality is that if you fail to remove the eucalyptus trees, it severely limits the utility of the space and what designs you can have in that space to make it more usable and to accomplish many of the goals that the public has seen. Most importantly is the access, the view access to the entrance, but also just the space in general. So the library board supports the removal of the eucalyptus trees to maximize the space for cultural arts and also to be more in use with U corridors. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. Any other member of the public wishing to speak that hasn't turned in a speaker slip whose name I haven't called? Okay, there is one last person who wishes to be recognized, and that's W. Scott Burns. And he... Please remember lighting. I've been there at night, and it needs much better lighting. I will close public comment and move to questions from the Commission. If the applicant team would like to come forward, please. Commissioner Arias, do you have any questions? Time's up. Go ahead. I'm just kidding. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. My question rests with the reflecting pools and the knowledge that a small child, can drown in 2 inches of water. Have you thought anything of the safety factor?
Yes, if I may.
Yes, please respond to this question. Answer.
Chair and Commissioner Rios. We work, as you may know, almost exclusively in the public realm in high exposure situations, and are very fortunate to be involved with a number of water feature projects in the public realm. We believe that there are opportunities for the design of such a water feature that would allow the effects with significantly less than the 2 inches of water that you mentioned. We believe that there are ways to handle this in ways that would integrate planting and water in a way that would be appropriate. And at this point, the actual depth of the water has not been determined, but we are confident that this can be done. Regula, would you like to add some remarks?
Yes, we're responsible for designing fountains several parts of the world besides Southern California, and they're not always less than 2 inches, but we have not had that problem. I am the mother of 2 sons I'm very proud of. One is a Navy pilot right now. He's testing his helicopter. But I know this is a problem. I have a niece who drowned at the age of 18 months. And so I am very concerned with this. But I would say we would make the fountain as safe as we could. But I think also parents do have a responsibility in looking after their children, too. So I think it's, that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Rios, any more questions?
Yes, I have another question. Is there any position, I haven't heard, I know there's a book return across the street from the library. Was there any plans to put a book return in that location?
There is one.
You understand where I'm talking
Yes, there
about?
is one right now that's...
If you could point to this plan, please, so that the rest of the...
I think Peggy and Irene can...
So you would keep those book returns?
Yes. We've widened the sidewalk a bit along that edge. There's just a lawn that comes up to that edge. We've removed some of the lawn in order to make the sidewalk wide enough that passers-by can pass one another. There's right now there are street trees which come up out of the sidewalk. They're not at the curb. So we've tried to allow for a normal sidewalk width along that edge to make it more inviting and to account for the book drop and the existing street trees.
I'm done.
Okay. Commissioner Boucher, any questions? Commissioner Sharp?
Just one. Could you point out the location of the 3 Eucalyptus citrodora that
is that
seems
perhaps
to
on
be
the existing site plan
concern
that you
here?
have? Ms. Perbankus, do you have an existing site plan?
Yes, we do, and it is on there. Also, I believe in the photographs that we provided in the packet, there's a couple that show. There's one that shows them from 2 angles, and one of which is from the rooftop garden that I think indicates the amount of area that they take up. But to orient viewers, Anapamoose Street, so this is North Anacapa Street.
So those eucalyptus are located right there.
Right.
Which are?
Okay, so
One,
here's
two,
the
three.
entry to the library, and here are the trees. Here, the largest is there in this planter between the sidewalk of Anapamoose Street and the entrance to both the Faulkner and the library.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, Commissioner Murray?
Other than what, do you have any additional reasons why you're removing the trees, other than what the library, the director of library, and for the design? I'm just
Yes.
trying to see how.
The other reason is a question of safety, as Ms. Macias can attest herself, being almost hit by a limb dropping off the trees. These and Mr. Campbell can speak probably better than I can to this species, but this species, along with many other eucalyptus, are known as self-pruning trees, and they do drop their limbs. And these trees have done that over time, which is their nature. So there's not only the space that they take up, the location where they are, which obscures the entry, but also the question of safety and liability.
Did you want to add anything, Mr. Campbell?
In addition to Ms. Burbank's remarks related to the location of the trees that restrict the open views and entry to the library from Anapamoose Street. There are issues of the grade difference between the tree, the root crowns of the trees as they exist now, and the area, the future finished paved surface that would be required to create accessible path of travel. In addition to that, I would add to Ms. Burbank's remarks about liability, is that based on current knowledge, trees of this nature would not be incorporated into designs specifically so close to buildings or related to public paths of travel, not only for their potential damage to life and property directly, but because of the litter that they create, provides or creates significant issues related to roof gutters and roof structure in this particular case. One last point is that the location of the existing trees that Ms. Burbank points out, and not only would restrict if they were retained, not only restrict access to the 1979-1980 entry, Mr. Zimmer's entry arches, but would restrict the pathway, shifting it to the west and reducing the size of the public gathering area, not only in a
if you're going to continue to point to the plans, you need to point to these plans.
Peggy, if you could just show the direction, let's point to the concept plan. But because the grade difference requires a slope of as you know, 5% or less, the sloped area would have to be longer, therefore further restricting the area of the gathering, the 2% gathering space there to the west. So, as with all designs, everything is connected to everything else, and many different factors have to be taken into consideration, from public liability, life and property problems, to programming, to aesthetics.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Murray, any other questions? Commissioner Lavoie? Commissioner Schallenberger? Commissioner Drury?
I do. The main doors, you plan on opening up the main doors
I mean, without any obstructions. There was a suggestion, I think, of that there was going to be a work of art as a...
Yes, question.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Drury, let me make that clear. The idea is to open up the view to the historic doors.
That's what
the doors are not intended to return to being...
No, I understand that.
Well, they operate as an emergency exit. So the idea was to create sort of a seating area here so that people could enjoy the doors, contemplate the doors, and it seemed like a logical place also to provide possibly another work of art, a sculpture or something. Yeah. But that would be an entirely separate thing. And
okay, my next question is, I'll address that in comments. Am I on? This is... Can you hear
no,
me?
that's not on. You need the green.
I know. Gosh darn it. I'll just talk louder.
Your battery's dead.
Thank you. My next question is, I understand you're going to open up the access, a wider access between Anapamu and La Arcada, or the courtyard of the Art Museum. How much wider?
It would be widened approximately 3 feet.
Thank you. And what is the grade difference between? You mentioned that from the corner of Anacapa and Anapamu, there's a grade, and then it's going to go. Then it goes down significantly toward the Museum of Art. So it's going to require a good bit of fill. Did you say 500 cubic yards? Thank you.
Yes, and that would primarily be in the area of the activity area to fill the current sunken grass area.
Thank you.
That would be Commissioner Drury in this area.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other questions from any commissioners? I have a couple. Lighting. You haven't touched on lighting other than what I see as a decorative lantern. Is there other lighting prepared for this project, or if you could speak to the plan?
You
sorry, Mr.
notice
Campbell,
the plan, Ms. Burbank, if you would point out the symbol and that's annotated for post lights. Okay. At this point, given the assumptions about a post light of approximately the same height as today with proper lamping, those locations have been selected. It's not yet been engineered.
Okay. Great. And how about site furnishings, things like trash cans, recycling bins, that sort of thing?
Early in the process at this point, but we would look for the idioms of the downtown area.
Okay. Next, the trees, the eucalyptus. Have you given any other thought or exploration to preserving those trees? Have you done concepts that preserve those trees?
When we held 2 separate citizens' participation workshops, hands-on workshops, and that was an issue that came up in the first workshop. There were those that said keep the eucalyptus and those that said get rid of the eucalyptus. So for the second workshop, one of the major drivers of us presenting 2 separate plans to the public to choose as their base plan for working on going forward with the project was one to keep the eucalyptus and one to not keep them. And we showed different configurations for each. And it was unanimous in the second workshop to remove the eucalyptus. People went out, and these are people who spent pretty much the day on the first workshop and then a long afternoon and evening on the second workshop. So they went back and forth. They were both held in the library, and people went back and forth to look at what the ramifications were on the site.
And the last question is if you could briefly touch on other trees that are proposed to be removed.
There are some Raphaelophus, the Indian hawthorn. Its majestic beauty, we believe they were popular during the 70s, and they're placed around the
Excuse me, I'm
lawn
just gonna flip
area.
the page if you want to hold on one second. Okay, go ahead.
That is a tree that really wants to be a shrub and needs to be pruned continually. It's a very small tree. And then another couple of trees that we're looking at removing are two Nagami kumquats, which are along between the existing kind of bike path, the bike parking area, and the loading dock below. And those are also rather shrub-like, as you might know. And as citrus, they require some extra care.
And then also the two Italian cypress. Or
Oh, yes, and the two Italian cypress. And we are relocating a fan palm, a clumping fan palm that's in the planter right now, which really obscures views of the library. And we had proposed putting it on the corner of Anapamu and Anacapa Street as an accent on the corner, and also a tip of the hat to the palm collection of the courthouse on the other side of the street.
Okay, thank you. We'll open it up for comments. Commissioner Drury, comments.
Mr. Chair,
Oh.
before you go into comments, we do have one more member of the public who would like to speak. Do you wish to reopen?
I will give you 1 minute. We are tight on time here.
Mr. Goss?
If you could come up to the microphone here, Mr. Goss.
Thank you for
that's okay. I'm opening public comment, and you may speak right into the microphone there, wherever you feel comfortable.
This is a cherished part of my life. It is the center of the world in my little community, and it's nice to see members of the community here. When the last set of fires burned through our city, one of the defense lines was Anapamu. They were lined with fire trucks from De La Vina all the way over to Milpas. And that was the fallback line if they lost Constance. And when I see these trees, I worry very much that they would be part of a problem, specifically the large eucalyptus trees, that in a fire, those are just part of the problem. The other issue is that I've only had a little opportunity to look at the plans, but I think that the plans as I see them now are not maybe addressing the use of the park as it is today and to a more beneficial use for the community. And my specific issue is that in the evenings, there are no women and no children in this part of town, period. And were they to come, they come at peril, and that needs to be dealt with in every way that you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goss. I will close public comment now and move back to comments from the Commission. Commissioner Drury.
My comments are, I guess I just begin by saying that I really welcome this plan. This is long overdue. It maybe needs a bit of tweaking, but it's an idea that we need to address an architectural wrong. And one of the architectural wrongs, the most glaring one for me, is the obscuring of the Faulkner Gallery. That's an incredible building, and I see some landscape in front of it. I would eliminate any visual blockage of the Faulkner Gallery. I would eliminate the eucalyptus trees forthwith. I don't like them in any case, anywhere in Santa Barbara. And along with bulb outs, but that's another. Let's see. Yes, so my comments would be to celebrate the Faulkner Gallery in every way possible. I'm not even sure that you need that planter that comes off of Anapamu and is in line with the sidewalk in the middle between the... Yes, there. And I think the water feature is a terrific idea, and perhaps even an expansion of that. But in any case, keep everything that's built there low. I think that sculpture would be... It would have to be very judiciously placed to not interfere with that flow. The visual flow from Anapamu has been obscured for quite some time. It was a mistake the way they built the new entrance. And I particularly like the idea of opening up the old entrance, not opening up for traffic, but opening it up so people can see that. That's a hallowed ground for me. That's where I grew up as a kid in terms of reading. So I very much applaud this project, and thank you.
Commissioner Schallenberger?
Yes. So I'm having a little bit of trouble. I'm going to start with a little criticism, take it constructively. But I think one of the things that we've seen here is in trying to communicate amongst each other of what the project is and the scope, there's some difficulty because the drawings don't show what you're doing. In other words, this existing site plan is nice, but really what they should all be is a bunch of dashed lines indicating that these things are all to be demolished. So I'm not clear. I'd have to flip between the two sheets to understand and visualize, and would have to have a good understanding of the site itself. So I don't think that this is really communicating itself. What it really is missing is a demolition and tree removal plan. I don't see, typically you'll see an X through trees that are to be removed. So I'd like to see that in the future when you come back with in the next rounds. And it would be particularly helpful because the trees that are proposed to be removed, I'm not sure are the real targets here. The eucalyptus trees, I don't think, are the problem, other than maybe for your configuration of the layout of the new plaza. I understand that they conflict. Their current locations conflict, but visually, they're skyline trees. They're above. You barely notice them at ground level, especially. They're just the stalks of the trees. So really, the trees that struck me in looking at the progression of your building here, excuse me, is the you can see the original 1917, and obviously it's saplings and early growth, but then you see 9 years later, and you've got a nice infill here, but you can still see the building. You can still see the entry. You can still see the height of this arcade, and the architecture isn't as obscured. But as you go on, you jump to 78, this proportion is completely changed, and you don't read that arcade at all. You can't see the entry at all from the kitty corner. It's completely obliterated. And
you do start to see those eucalyptus.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, and they're above any sight lines. And then down the other side of the street too. This is at street level. You can't even see the building. It's literally behind. I know it's heresy in this town to call for less landscaping, but I like to
your microphone.
I like to see the building. It's a beautiful building. I'd like to see more of it. And this photo I brought out as well because just to illustrate the eucalyptus being up high like that. And I would disagree with Commissioner Drury. The Citridora I can live with. The others I can probably agree with. So it's just a gut level reaction here that I'd like to see the building expressed more in total, not just the Faulkner Gallery. The layout and the plaza plan, that seems like it's well thought out, and I can understand how you got to where you got, and I commend the project in general. But I'd just like to see it communicated a little better in the next rounds, and show us what is happening. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schallenberger.
Chairman Suding, would it help the commission if I walked you through on the existing plan what would be removed and what would stay?
Nope. Okay. Commissioner Livoy, you had your chance.
You, Chair Suding. I'm sympathetic to all of the aspects of your program and for the desire to improve this area. But, and it's a big but.
I beg your pardon?
I wasn't talking about you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
The entrance, the old entrance, the original entrance to the art museum or to the library needs to be opened up. It does not need to be cluttered with a piece of art in front of it. I mean, when you really stop and look at that lovely piece of sculpture, it's a piece of art. It does not need to be obscured by anybody else's piece of art. It's quite lovely and needs to be emphasized as an entry. And actually, the current trees frame it kind of nicely, but what's on the ground and all those little walls really don't do it justice. The problem I have with the design is I would have a real problem making findings that this is compatible with the guidelines. This is a very contemporary design. It does not speak at all to Hispanic landscape design or traditional landscape design. Just too much contemporary. And then if you'll indulge me, I agree with Commissioner Drury. The Faulkner Building is really kind of a marvelous piece of Art Deco architecture that is obscured currently by landscaping. And I wasn't aware that they had this reflecting pond out in front of it. And now that I see that picture from 1931, you know, that's a lovely piece of Deco site design. Absolutely lovely piece of design. And it speaks to the Spanish tradition of alleys of water as an entrance to a building and a way of defining space. And it's really unfortunate that that was ever taken out, and unfortunate that it's not going to be restored. And I somewhat agree with the loss of the tall eucalyptus trees. I would want to see a skyline tree replaced of some type if eucalyptus are so heinous to some people. Thank you.
Commissioner Murray?
I don't have much comments to say, but I really agree with the comments made by Schellenberger and also Bill Lavoie. I just keep looking at that picture and I keep saying that whenever we have an opportunity to restore and return something that was originally planned, it's always a good idea. And I really strongly agree with the main art door, not to clutter it. It's the most formal part of that side of the library, and it needs to be completely celebrated in its formality. I also agree with the eucalyptus. I don't think they are definitely skyline trees, and I think we really need to keep them. But I, too, was wrestling with the idea, looking at your plans, it's not clear to me what period of the library you're trying to return it to, the landscape. It's very, like Bill Lavoie said, it's very much a contemporary plan, and I just think it needs to be the historical part needs to be studied. I wouldn't mind returning it back to that. That is clean, just really, really wonderful.
Thank you, Commissioner Murray. We are getting behind schedule. Commissioner Sharp, if you could
I'll make it very
comments.
quick. Thank you. I think we've had some incredibly good comments so far as we've come down the line here. To very quickly reiterate, I firmly believe in opening up the old front entrance as much as possible, and agree with Mr. Lavoie that we don't have to provide additional sculpture because of the beauty of that, the original front door. The lack of formality to the Faulkner Gallery in the plan sort of baffles me. It just, to me, it cries for symmetry or a very formal entrance coming up, and I would have to talk to you further about why you have the informality of the fountain being off center and the planter and the stairs. I certainly understand some of that, but I think this photograph, and I'll put it up here one more time, just screams honoring the Faulkner, which is an incredibly beautiful building, and I have not, until I saw this photograph, I never appreciated that building as much as I now do, and it's a really work of art. And as far as the eucalyptus trees go, I understand the issues of the entry and the grades and all, and I'm ambivalent about, obviously there's pros and cons, and I would like to see that resolved as we get further down the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharp. Commissioner Boucher, any comments?
Yes. It's on. Whoever brought that photograph in probably shouldn't have, because I look at that and I say, why can't we have that back? I love those eucalyptus trees. They are skyline trees, and I'd like to see them kept, but even more so this very formal entrance to the Faulkner, which has always been one of my absolute pet buildings. I'd like to see that sort of thing done with it.
Thank you, Commissioner Boucher. Commissioner Arias.
Yes. When I look at the front door and the urge to make it more visible, I can agree with that. However, I look to the side and see two very large, absolutely plain walls that need to be addressed. So I would think very, very carefully about how the front is going to look with these blank walls, as you now propose. There's an example. You can remove and expose the front door, but you've got two very empty walls there that don't have any harmony with the other sides of the building. So I would look for some means of softening that. I find inconsistencies in your statements regarding the safety of the limbs falling from the trees and the pools. It doesn't take long to drown. It can be at night. It can be during an event. I know parents are supposed to be responsible, but accidents happen. And any time there is an accident on a city property, you can bet the city's going to have to pay for an attorney to defend. And that means us taxpayers are paying. So I'm going to ask you to look very, very carefully at the safety factor. Regarding the financial thing, I'm not going to make any comment on that because I think that is a decision that the City Council will have to make. I do agree that there's a need, when you look at these pictures, there's a need for a softening of the skyline trees, and indeed the skyline trees in the downtown area are very important for softening building lines and things like that. Finally, I want to say how important lighting is. The things that you find in there now can be found in any neighborhood. I know because I find them. And lighting is one of the best deterrents you have. It enables the police car going by to look into the site instead of having to get out and patrol the site. So lighting becomes very, very important. So I see a real need to balance the landscaping and make it fit into the building and soften the building where it's necessary and not soften it where it isn't necessary. And as far as a sculpture in front of that door, no, I wouldn't support that at all. I think that would be very much a detraction.
Commissioner Boucher.
I would just like to disagree with the comment on the blank walls on the front of the building. We so seldom get a nice, simple blank wall, and I really appreciate that.
Okay. Since we're so close on time, I'm just going to weigh in on the removal or retention of the eucalyptus, and my vote would be that they need to remain. The plan needs to work around them somehow. So with that, I will summarize the comments, and if somebody wishes to make a motion. The renovation of the Library Plaza is long overdue. The Faulkner Gallery should be celebrated. Keep planted and built items in the space low and sight lines open. Better visibility of the original entrance is paramount. Provide a demolition and tree removal plan. It's the consensus of this commission that the Eucalyptus citriodora shall remain. Explore expression and visibility of the whole building. How about just explore visibility of the whole building? The original entrance should not have any added art placed in front of it. The landscape plan is not compliant with the EPV guidelines and is too contemporary. The original Faulkner fountains should, say that 5 times fast, should be looked at as an opportunity to be re-implemented, as an element to be re-implemented. The lack of formality to the Faulkner is perplexing. Pay attention to the balance of opening up the visibility of the original entrance and the blank walls. Lighting fixture style should be exemplary for this space. And lastly, safety of the pool needs to be considered. Do I have somebody who's willing to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
I have a motion by Boucher, second by Lavoie.
What's the
Under
motion?
discussion, what is the motion? 2 weeks or no? Wait, what do we have?
Oh, we've got just 1 week, and then we go to January.
January.
So we have a meeting in 1 week. Do you want to be continued to that?
I don't think we can. We're too impacted
okay.
on that meeting. Ms. Gantz, what's the availability of December 7th?
It's full.
It's full. Okay, so it's going to
So
be
what's-
in January. What's the first meeting in January?
January 4th.
January
Is it
4th. Would
okay
you like
to
to be continued to
continue
January
it?
4th?
Chair Suding, we would like an indefinite continuance, please.
Fine.
Okay. that's-
Indefinite
it's an
continuance?
Indefinite continuance.
Question of the motion? 5 minutes of the
I have
chair.
a concern from staff, Mrs. Gantz.
We were just wondering what the yeses and nos were on the eucalyptus trees being cut.
You want the count?
That would be great.
Okay. The yeses were 5 in favor, 2 against. So 5 in favor of keeping, and Mr. Sharp, and 2 in favor of letting go. Mr. Sharp was ambivalent.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
I just wanted to weigh in. I think Rose probably interpreted it as wanting to keep them, but I can't make that determination yet.
Would
because
you like them to do a straw vote?
Well, I'm just saying it's kind of an important point. I don't know
Absolutely.
the grading plan. I don't know. There's no spot elevations. I don't know what the, in other words, if the plaza is to be at a certain level and the trees are going to be 3 feet above that level, then there's an issue to discuss here. But I don't know that from this plan yet. So maybe we can just have that as an item on the next review. I'm not sure exactly.
How about if I rephrase it then, that the majority of the commission would like the applicant to continue to study retention of the Eucalyptus citriodora?
Sounds great.
Is that okay? Is that okay with the maker of the motion?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and we have Commissioner Rios.
I would like to have some sort of a statement included about the importance of skyline trees in the downtown area.
I agree with that.
Yes.
The maker of the motion, agree with that. So if you could add that skyline trees are important in the downtown area. Okay, all in favor? We had a motion by Boucher, second by Lavoie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you all, the public, for coming. I am going to suggest that we take a 2-minute
Have a
break
great Christmas.
so that the chair doesn't get cranky.
Thank you.
Patient.
Thank you for having me early.
Well, it is kind of early, but still not, you know.
Should we wait for
Nope.
Dawn? Or Dawn
Nope.
left? Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, Brian Cornell. I am here representing a plethora of property owners back in the back area here between the Granada and the School of Law and Tupelo Junction and whatnot is State Street places over here.
Oops.
Sorry. This has been a long time coming. This is just a concept review for all of you. We haven't attempted to engage a landscape architect yet at this point, because all of these property owners have been coming together to get a resolution in order to create a permanent solution back in this area. And ultimately, this is going to be an actual tentative map revamping of the lot lines, because it's more than 4 lots. It won't be done as a lot line adjustment. It will be done instead as a tentative map. So you'll have ample opportunity to review this as it goes through the process. But I wanted to have you all take the first look at the concept.
I'm sorry, Brian, can I interrupt you for one
Yeah,
second?
no.
Does everybody understand where we're looking at? Okay, 'cause it took me a little
And
while.
actually, let me go ahead and show you the photographs. So this, of course, is the back wall of the Granada, and that is this wall right here, looking back towards the tower. This, of course, is the parking lot wall of the Granada garage. These are the storefronts, or the backs of the buildings on State Street. The College of Law right here. This is actually, this door is a trash enclosure off the College of Law. And these photos are actually looking back up the alleyway towards Anacapa. So that's the back side of those buildings along Victoria. So one of the primary aspects of this is to resolve the ramp out of the Granada exit is one of the primary conditions. And right now, if you've been back there, there's kind of a gerrymandered ramp that is not intended to be permanent. The other issue is getting an area for the parking of buses and trucks for performances for the Granada Theater. And then the third component is small garages for the residents that are at the top of the Granada Tower. There's 2 residents up on top there. So what I've shown in red is what will ultimately be the revised configuration of all of these property lines. The intent is pretty simple, and that is to continue to dedicate this paseo permanently to the city so that it will connect all the way back through to the alleyway for the Granada garage, to build these garages and to have a unified trash enclosure for these various property owners. We are proposing a 5-foot high wall. You already heard about the 15-foot wall, which is pretty funny. It was my fault completely. The little leg of my ampersand came down a little far in the application. But, you know, I'm imagining that this is a very simple plaster wall, perhaps with a stone or tiled cap. And we are carrying the wall back around the rear of these, the truck and bus parking, just to provide a place for power and water and other connections for those temporary placement of those buses. There will be, during the normal course of the day, employees of the Granada Theater will park in this area in a parallel or more perpendicular situation. We are proposing that the garages are able to accommodate lifts, which I show in my little section here. And the other thing that we've done to help with one of the owners in the Granada Tower is to separate these buildings, which kind of works well as far as the passageway to the exit for the Granada, which will be served, which will provide service from the buses and the trucks. We want to be able to build this one garage first while the whole tentative map is being processed, because that's going to be a very long, could be a year-long process. And so it's somewhat critical to try to get that garage built in advance of that. So I think that explains it. I'm sure you all may have questions, but I'll stop there.
Okay. I will open public comment. Seeing no speaker slips, I will close public comment and ask for questions from the Commission. Commissioner Drury? Okay. Commissioner Lavoie?
No.
Murray?
So what's happened to the parking there now? That's all going to disappear?
Well, there will still be parking. You can see these property lines here would allow for parking to come through in this area and for these owners to park. And this Paseo theoretically would still allow some parking, although it's very tight in this area for these adjoining properties. But it's also, this certainly is an area that could facilitate an addition to these buildings in the future or whatever, because it's a normal extension of their property boundaries. It's just modified.
So so the bus would come in from Anapamu entrance back.
Or Anacapa.
It could come in either way.
Okay.
And so it could go out this way, or it could make that turn.
It's one bus at a time, or?
Well, it obviously depends on the performance. It could be, there could be no buses. There could be, a smaller truck. It varies. I've shown a standard or a pretty large standard bus and then a 65-foot truck in this diagram.
Okay.
Who's in the bus? Who's in the bus? Commissioner Boucher.
Some rock group.
Question. Yeah, well, if it's somebody I like, I might approve this. No. Commissioner Boucher, any questions?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Arias, any questions? Did I cut you off? Did you have more questions,
No, I'm
Commissioner?
done.
Okay.
And of course, I didn't even mention, this is just a quick little sketch showing it. Phil, excuse me for my tree, but, this is the one area that we have for planting. This is very tight through here, and we do need to accommodate these property owners. So, I've tried to at least squeeze in some tree growth where it won't conflict with the potential for parking on those properties as well as for the truck and bus parking for the Granada.
So that brings up my question. So there is no opportunity for planting between the Paseo and the wall?
Well, it's not, it's not out of the question. Obviously, this area, by the time you consider all these things, it's a little bit tight. It's possible that we could consider, where the wall would stop and we would plant, a palm tree in between that to give a little bit more room.
A palm tree?
Well, multiple. In however many we decide to plant in that kind of configuration.
And please refresh my memory. Is this paving already existing?
No.
Okay.
This is all concrete now.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay. So your intention is to match the paving that's in the existing alley?
It seems like that would be the right thing to do.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody come up with any other questions?
Mr.
I'm
Chair?
sorry. No, Ms. Gatz.
Can I just ask, Brian, did you run any of this by transportation yet?
I did,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Okay, I'll look to the commission for comments. Commissioner Arias, any comments?
I think it's going to be a very, oh, sorry, I put my mic back on. I think it's going to be a very tight backing out for those cars with the bus right there in the garage. What's the distance between those? Yeah.
This is a little bit less than 24 feet, but that is the thing that I reviewed with transportation
You did
staff.
review that.
Yeah, and so I made sure the garage doors were wider than normal to, facilitate. So they have checked the back out of that.
And as far as fire truck service, et cetera, in case of an emergency, everything works for that?
Well, I have not had fire review it, but I believe because of distances, I don't think a fire truck would come beyond the alleyway here because this distance is within their normal range of
Well, as far as the design of the buildings, they appear to fit, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be tight, particularly if you have people who buy vehicles that are rather large. But that'll be their problem, I guess.
Okay. Any other comments, Commissioner Arias?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Boucher?
I don't really have a comment at this point. Thank you.
Commissioner
Thank
Murray,
you.
any comments at this point?
Bill, go ahead. I want to
Commissioner Lavoie?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's well, like most of Brian's work, pretty ingenious. The comments, my comments would be mostly about landscaping. Any opportunity along the Paseo to provide a break of green would be absolutely wonderful, particularly towards the south end. If that wall could have at least a plant pocket or three along it, and or a vine pocket as it gets next to the bus parking on the Paseo side.
So this
just hold on,
I just want to understand, is that what you're talking about? This wall, okay.
I'm not supposed to point at mine. That wall.
Okay.
If there could be a plant pocket on that wall, and then towards you, vine pockets, at least to break up the expanse of that wall. The garages, as currently designed, are totally acceptable per the guidelines, but I'm not sure they're acceptable on this site next to that great big huge blank ugly wall, historic ugly wall that was never meant to be there. So, having said that, it's sort of like I'm not sure that the garages need to be simpler. Maybe just a flat parapet with buttresses on the building, just something very simple. The garages you're showing are very residential in scale and lovely, but I don't think they work here against that great big wall. That it needs to be something more like the wall that's in back of the other theater, Libero Theater. The garden wall that's there with the scallops and the piers. Something like that, a very simple expression of architecture. And pretty bold. I mean, it needs to be bold and gutsy in order to just sit there comfortably. Not that it won't be obscured by a bus half the year, but that's okay.
And Commissioner Drury, any comments?
I would concur with Commissioner Lavoie. I would also suggest that the planting will be at least a beginning of an anti-graffiti campaign vegetally, because that wall is going to be tagged. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't know how I can say that. It just came to me somehow. Thank you.
Just 1 second, please. No, I'm sorry, Commissioner Murray.
Yeah, I agree with Bill Lavoie. These are nice, but they really do look like residential. And I was thinking maybe the way he's talking about bold buildings, kind of simple, and I thought maybe that would be the opportunity to use espalier or green or anything like that to make those buildings, you know, more like a landscape buildings with greenery or something to help them.
Good.
Anyone else?
Good suggestion.
Comments? Okay. I agree with Commissioner Lavoie that you know, these garages are within the EPP guidelines, but they're not within context. That was the first thing that struck me. They're cute little buildings, but it's difficult when you have such a white elephant in the room.
That's the
as a
biggest
neighbor.
one in town.
So, you know, that being said, I think Mr. Cornell can come up with a creative solution to abate that or to ameliorate that. I'm also a bit concerned about the lack of landscape, and I think you've heard that loud and clear. And then the last concern that I have is the interface between the two paving materials, particularly where the bus parks and where the travelway is for the garages, and that's at this line here. The abrupt transition from the colored stamped, scored, not even stamped, colored scored concrete to asphalt is a little problematic, and maybe some of that can that paving can be brought into that area to just help delineate things or to transition and meld those two surfaces together. Anyone else have any comments? If not, I will summarize and look for a motion, and in that motion I want the maker to stipulate the timing for return. Okay.
Pardon me. This was kind of one of those one-time reviews where he was just coming in to just receive comments.
Yeah. Okay, so these are comments, no motion?
Exactly.
Okay, we're not
we
looking
can continue, yeah, that's fine.
We're not looking for a motion, we're just providing comments, and I'll summarize those comments, and then I'll give you an opportunity. Okay, the tight geometry of the site is a concern. Continue processing this project through department review, especially the fire department. The north-south paseo, as it runs from the existing alley out to State Street, needs to have some landscaping. The garages are within the guidelines, but not within the context. Study a different solution, and pay attention to the elimination of graffiti opportunities, and study a paving integration between the existing concrete alley paving and the proposed AC paving at bus parking and garage travelway. Okay, sorry. Okay. Study an integration between the two paving materials at the existing concrete alley and the proposed AC or asphalt bus parking / garage area. Mr. Cornell.
Well, I just wanted to share with you, I have to laugh because I completely agree. And one of the primary reason why we have the tile roofs here really is that one of the property owners was very concerned about looking down onto a flat roof. So you know, we will work to meet your concerns and meet his concerns simultaneously.
Okay, well, that's your challenge as an architect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you understand the comments?
I do, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. And we have a copy? Yeah, I think we do.
You got it.
Okay, next item on the agenda.
Just stay seated. That's okay.
Item number 5, 101 State Street. And this is a proposal to demolish an existing 714 square foot laundry building and 40 space parking lot. We've seen this once before. We have a copy, don't we? No.
No. Well, yeah, I'll take it. I'll recycle
it. Comments? Do we have Commissioner Schallenberger and Commissioner Sharp standing by?
No, it isn't. Yeah.
They recuse them. Oh, Schallenberger
Craig
did for
would.
this one and the last one, but I don't know about Sharp.
No.
Where's Sharp?
Maybe he sat out the last one.
Five sets here. Are these
Okay.
all this? And it's all the same as what?
Yeah, I don't know why you have 5.
They multiply.
I'll take 2. Back.
Okay. Last time this was here was in August of 2011. The Commission made the following comments. The Commission supports the need in the community for a hotel and the location of this project at this site. The size, bulk, and scale and general style are acceptable. Compatibility with the neighborhood and the Californian hotel will be of great importance. At least one commissioner was concerned that the proposed 3-story mass may block views of the mountains, and the mix of wood balconies with iron balconies are of concern.
Okay, Brian Cannell and Mark Romasano.
Welcome.
This was actually what we decided to come back. We are obviously working with the city relative to Kimberly, which I think at your last meeting, which was probably 3 weeks ago, you reviewed the Kimberly, and so what we're showing you is the effects on the project. I just wanted to mention in advance of that, when we first reviewed this with you, it was based on a plan that I had at least proposed. I'll just show you guys this, that I had proposed to city transportation. Yeah, I guess this would be the way to look at it, to make Kimberly entirely one way. And we're going to show you the scheme now with the two-way plan, which they've been trying to minimize the taking of the Romasana property here to the extent feasible, but obviously making it two-way makes that difficult. It is interesting to note, and I'll just put this little thought in your mind, that ultimately the nice thing about the one-way Kimberly was the minimizing impacts down here at Yananali, which is yet to come. I mean, you guys will be looking at that someday in the future. So anyway, we wanted to just review with you what the effects were, and hopefully we'll be able to keep moving forward on this. But this is the plan that you all looked at, or this reflects Kimberly per what the city showed you all.
For the Mason Street bridge replacement.
And what we're trying to do, obviously, is to maintain sort of the critical mass of this building in terms of number of rooms to make it reasonable and feasible. So what we have done is we've tried to maintain the same number of parking stalls, and you can see from this scheme that actually the last 2 stalls would come forward of the building mass, and be up against the existing wall that is along State Street. We still have the primary circulation in and out of Kimberly here, and then another exit way out onto Mason. Again, a small lobby space that serves the hotel. This is really more of a concierge because obviously this will be connected to the main Harborview facility. So the real change in all of this is that we had to, because the building sort of got scrunched, and it probably would be helpful for me to bring the old plans back up to you, but we basically brought a 3-story portion forward in this location that was previously 2 stories, and then modified the front of the building, which actually I think the process of this improved the State Street side of this building. The idea is that we would increase the wall height that exists. Right now it's just about probably a 30-inch wall. I think I brought another photo just to show you. So that's the existing. This is the existing wall at that bus stop. And so our thought is that we would actually raise this wall up to be at the spring line or just slightly below the spring line of that little old abandoned phone booth. And as I mentioned the last time, the idea is to actually engage this and make it a little wood gate that would provide access to the grade level back there. And then, of course, there would be, behind that wall would be planting, particularly, back in that corner and then in the area between the parking and the back of that wall. So that's essentially it. I don't know, Mark, if you have anything that you would like to add.
Actually, I think...
Can you turn the mic towards you and turn it on?
As we reviewed this and the building became pushed shorter in overall length, it actually, I think, gives an opportunity to improve a few things, at least from a guest experience situation. And that is, what we're studying now is whether we have the third and second floor open to the air or whether we enclose that center section and make it similar to the north wing that we built on State Street, which, if any of you have been inside it, that second floor has a very generous, not lobby feeling, but sitting area feeling. So actually, by making it shorter and moving the two rooms forward, it gives us a better opportunity to play with the interior space. We just realized that actually yesterday and today, and we really haven't finalized what makes more sense, but it might make a better situation down on the beach with inclement weather and fog, et cetera, et cetera. So
if Mark and I have talked about it, and we obviously would welcome your comments on that, to actually still have a sense of courtyard from this stair that connects with State Street in this area, perhaps rework where these stairs are exactly. But what he's talking about is then covering really this area to create more interior guest space, lounge, whatever. And the anticipation, if we were to do that, is that it wouldn't really affect the roof lines as you see it from any of the vantage points. So you'd still have that more or less, that two-story mass along State Street would really be the dominant thing.
Okay. Questions from the commission? Do I see a public speaker slip coming up?
Yes.
Okay, I will open public comment, and I will close public comment. Mr. DeForest?
Thank you. Just a quick question. Is this an annex to the existing hotel, just more hotel rooms, or is this a separate enterprise?
Doesn't sound like a comment, but...
No.
Okay, thank you.
That is a question, but it would be. And how is this going to fit in, because the overall look is important, to this important section of State Street, right down near the waterfront, with the visitor experience? Is it going to produce a canyon-like visage up State Street and detract from the viewscape, or is it going to... and how does it tie into the plans for just up the street for the Entrada de Santa Barbara? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeForest. I having no other speaker slips present, I will close public comment and move to questions from the commission. Commissioner Arias, any questions?
Yeah, I just want to listen and learn more.
Okay. Commissioner Boucher, any questions?
Not yet.
Commissioner Sharp?
None.
Commissioner Murray?
Brian, could you talk about the heights, different heights? Where do you see how it works? I'm seeing that, but I just kind of like for you to show me.
We have the highest roof peak from grade would be 35 feet, so that would be the three-story portion. Mm-hmm. And I don't have the two-story portion called out, but I would imagine that it's probably around 9 feet or so below that. So 28 feet, something like that, would be the two-story portion, which is in front.
Okay. Commissioner LeBoy, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Brian, I'm somewhat curious why you loaded the building to the back as opposed to 3 stories on State Street. Is there a reason?
Well, I think it was really, the concern was creating too much mass along State Street to pull it back, because obviously we have, even though admittedly the California Hotel, here is very tall, we have two stories here at the, whatever the new hotel is called, and also just concern about not creating too much of a canyon here along Mason, but that's...
Commissioner Drury, questions?
I only have one.
Are you concerned at all about security on the State Street elevation, those stairs leading into the interior of the hotel? You have some sort of a...
We have a similar situation on the State Street building right now. The stairway right next to the Hotel California between our north building. We really don't have a big problem, especially if we do a plan like we're talking, because once you get up to there, to get into the guest room areas, we'd have card key locks, and we haven't seen a problem. We have 24-hour day security, so
great. Thank
hasn't
you.
been a problem yet.
Anybody else have any questions at this point?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before you go into comments?
No, I'm not going into comments. I have a question.
Okay. Before you go into comments, I have a comment.
I will acknowledge you. I didn't see this the first time. I wasn't here. And I'm just maybe hoping that you can explain why it seems like this portion of the State Street facade seems to sort of turn its shoulder to State Street. I enjoy the idea, or I welcome the idea of this little plaza that kind of brings the people in. But then we've got this wall here that is existing that you're adding on to, and then somewhat blank elevation on the first floor. And it seems like it's kind of a cold shoulder to State Street. Am I missing something?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I have an option in that.
That may be the explanation.
The parking, the bus parking is, the bus stop is here, and there is an existing wall that blocks this off. And parking, at the end of the day, because of the flood zone down here, I've got to put, and the water table, I've got to put parking at grade. So because parking is here, it made sense that the wall we would just continue with the wall element that exists today. But this becomes the obvious, very important, as you identified, connection to State Street.
Yeah. Then the other question is, does this part of the State Street block face get narrowed when the Entrada project goes forward?
This side stays exactly the same.
Okay.
The only thing that changes is the Entrada side.
This moves. Okay.
Yeah.
And the same down.
Yeah, and and Entrada is, of course, directly across.
Right. Area C is right here.
Exactly.
Area B and Area A.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know it well.
You betcha.
Okay. Ms. Gantz.
So this was coming back for another one of those. It was here once in July for a one-time only. Very preliminary concept review.
Wanted to do it two-time only.
So now it's back for another one of those, and you cannot take any action. It needs to be noticed. It hasn't had a mailed notice yet.
Okay.
So I just want everybody to be clear that it does need to return for, like a new project with a mailed notice to, Thank you.
So we're just going to provide you.
And we just, we really wanted to come back with you on the heels of your review of Kimberly, just so you understood, that we're dealing with the consequences of that. And of course, we really can't apply for this until the city finalizes what they're going to do on Kimberly.
Okay. Commissioner Drury, any comments?
I do not.
Commissioner Lavoie, any comments you'd like to offer the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I express appreciation for the applicant and the architect to come in at a very early stage with the design as it gets modified, so that they don't get too far down the road and latch on to an idea that we don't find acceptable. The idea is acceptable, even as modified. The the two things that sort of stand out that need to be addressed with a little more care are the plaza. We're seeing a lot of corner plazas, and there's nothing plaza about it except the title on the drawing. And so as you work on the design to make that a pleasant pedestrian experience as much as you can. The other thing is the long wall on State Street screening the parking. That maybe in the middle of it is an opportunity for a decorative tile element or a wall fountain to break up that expanse of white plaster from a pedestrian experience. Otherwise, the architecture is acceptable and consistent with the guidelines.
Commissioner Murray.
I concur with those comments. I would like to see next time you come, maybe just a view from Cabrillo, looking up and see what would you potentially see from anyway.
Kind of have it. I mean, I'm just wondering, just tell me maybe what. So that would be that view, right?
There's the Californian.
But we could go back
just
further.
Go back further.
Okay.
Just so we get a sense of that State Street view up to the mountains.
Well, it wouldn't be up to the mountain.
It would be sort of, yeah. Well,
Yeah, and that's really
just more upstate.
It's more upstate Street.
Yeah, the mountain view blockage is really as you can see from this one and this one is really from Mason.
Yeah.
More than it is from State Street.
Yeah, but yeah, whatever you could provide.
Okay. Anything else? Commissioner Sharp, any comments?
I agree with what has been said, and I think it can be a nice project. I have no further comments.
Okay. Commissioner Boucher, any comments?
No, I would agree with that.
With what?
With what Don Sharp said.
Commissioner Rietz, any comments?
I would like to, since this is in the floodplain, have you done any of the building so that you can minimize the damage occurring in a 100-year flood?
Well, yeah, I mean that's why everything is up.
I know that's why everything's up, but you've taken that into account.
Well,
obviously.
we will probably have to install floodgates,
Yeah.
around all of the functions that are on the ground level.
Yeah.
So
I think that the making of Kimberly one way and its involvement with the Mason Street Bridge, also possibly that road being one way might be
the Yananoli
might be a good solution.
seemed that way to us.
Yeah, I would think that is the way to go. And when we had that in front of us recently, they said that they had committees and made decisions, and I asked for the facts. And I understand they are going to be coming back in front of us discussing that.
Yeah.
But I would hope that you would be here and make input into it, because I think this affects your area as much. And I see little problem with it being a one-way street, frankly.
I agree.
Yeah. Those are my comments. As far as the architecture and the use of the site and the way it's handled, I think it's fine. But I would hope that we could mutually solve a problem by the one-way.
Okay. I just have two comments, and one is to echo Commissioner Lavoie's comment about the plaza, making it, purposeful and pedestrian friendly. The other comment also relates to the plaza. If there is a way that plaza can interface a bit better with the sidewalk on State Street, particularly at the who turned that off? Particularly at the north corner of the plaza, and I'll have to point it to you. But if this could somehow be clipped or something so that we have a better flow into that plaza as opposed to just a corner of a wall kind of truncating that interface. We need to kind of embrace that corner and that abrupt corner. We need to embrace the intersection, and that abrupt corner of the wall is not doing that. So anything that you can do to engage the sidewalk a bit better would be good. I'm hearing from the commission that really only one person weighed in on it, but I'm going to take that as a consensus that the one-way traffic solution seems to be superior to the two-way option. Okay, so that's a comment, Ms. Feliciano. Show a simulation of the view up State Street. The wall at the back of the sidewalk on State Street may benefit from a tile element, a water feature, or an art element. The plaza at the corner of Mason and State needs to be pleasant and purposeful and more engaged with the public sidewalk. And the early review of this project is very much appreciated by the Commission.
Mr.
Everybody
Chair,
feel that those...
Could I add one more
yes,
comment?
Commissioner, yes.
Look at it from the standpoint of being anti-tagging material.
Okay. So those are comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do you have one set there?
How did we get so far ahead?
4 minutes.
Come back, Brian.
I don't know about the color of that building.
No, I'm getting out of here.
Have you thought of...
Where are those tiles going? Okay, so we're now... We're now a whole half hour ahead of schedule, and you're here for the 1700 East Cabrillo?
Yes.
Everybody here from your team?
No. But I'm
And
ready.
well, unfortunately, this is a publicly noticed item. The earliest we can take it is 10 minutes before the scheduled
Okay.
item.
Okay.
Is that right?
Well, you want a break, don't you?
What was your third clue?
That's what I recorded anyway. I don't know why.
I'm sure you're right. Water ski ramps? You're the water ski
It was
ramps.
40 minutes
So-
early, so you're absolutely
Oh,
right.
good.
I'm assuming, Gabriella, that we're off tape right now? We're not being televised? Okay, because I all right. I wanted to know if the commission wanted to, well, there's too many people. Well, the party activity. Oh, does staff need to be notified?
Excuse me, I was talking. Yeah, I will call them.
Okay, we are reconvening the November 30th meeting of the Historic Landmarks Commission. Next item on the agenda is item number 6. This is scheduled for final review, and this is 1700 East Cabrillo Boulevard. This parcel is on the city's list of potential historic resources. It is the Andre Clark Bird Refuge. Last time this was at the commission was on 17th of August, 2011. The commission made the following comments at that time. There would not be any adverse impacts to historic resources, and there was concern expressed with the reversal of the marshlands natural process. If you'd give your name and a brief presentation, please.
Yes, my name is Kathy Fry. I'm the Natural Areas Planner from the Parks and Recreation Department.
Welcome.
Thank you. I am going to give you a very brief description of the project. You heard this in the past, and I just will do that for the sake of those listening in. And then I'll give you an update of where we've been since the 17th of August, and then let you know where we're headed with the project and when this is actually going to occur.
Okay, time's up.
The Andre Clark Bird Refuge is a 42-acre open space managed by the Park and Recreation Department. It contains a 29-acre lake with 3 islands. This is essentially a vegetation management project and a restoration project. The areas that you see with the letters are the locations where vegetation will be removed, and that includes the above water portion and the rhizomes in the soil. A little over 3/4 of an acre will be removed from the lake, and then there are 2 culverts, and approximately 1/10 of an acre will be removed out of 2 culverts, including vegetation and sediment. The other culvert is right across the freeway over on the other side of the tennis courts. It is connected to the bird refuge underneath the freeway. The project, since the last time we met, went to the Park and Rec Commission, and they had favorable comments on the project. It went to the Planning Commission on November 10th, and they approved the MND, the environmental document. They made findings for the CDP, and they made recommendations to the California Coastal Commission. The portion of the project within the Coastal Commission's jurisdiction is the submerged portion of the lake.
Excuse me if I may interrupt you. Do we have minutes from that Parks and Rec Commission?
I do not. What I do is I provide comments in the conditions of approval from the resolution from the Planning Commission approval. But since there were no comments for the HLC to look at or implement, that's why I didn't give you anything.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's basically where we've been. We've also been acquiring our permits, working with permitting agencies. As I mentioned to you the last time we were here, we are removing a native vegetation. This is also within a submerged habitat within water. So we're under the jurisdiction of the Corps, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and because of the species in here, including tidewater goby, a federally endangered species, we're working with the Corps and Fish and Wildlife and Fish and Game on this project. So we are working in acquiring all those permits. We have a few, and we've been in close contact with them, talking on a weekly basis. Moving forward, this project will occur in January of 2012, just about a little over a month from now. And one of the reasons to move forward quickly on this is that we need to be out of the water and out of the project area by February 15th, which is the beginning of the bird nesting season. And the equipment could potentially disturb nesting birds, and that is a mandate of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So we have a short window, and we are moving forward to do the work at that time. We're also going to be doing restoration, and the restoration is also within the submerged portion of the bird refuge. It's around the perimeter of the bird refuge, and a small portion in the upland. And I have another map for you that I can provide that actually shows those areas. It is the dotted line. It's basically the same map that you have, and the dotted portion along the border.
Right there?
Yes,
if
there's.
you just pass it, do you have three by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, one down there and one over there, please. Thank you.
Sorry. So the red dotted is emergent or marsh vegetation that will occur within the water, and then the blue dotted, there's a small portion of it on the side of the bird refuge near the zoo, and on the northern portion that may have a bit of the elements of a riparian vegetation. Since we are removing emergent vegetation, that's what we're trying to do with our restoration. Restoration will actually begin during the portion of the project where we're removing the vegetation. We're going to salvage the rhizomes from the Scirpus californicus and have those grown back again and in the greenhouse for about 9 months, and then they'll be planted out within the bird refuge. So that is that will occur at the end of year one, and then it is a 5-year project. There'll be follow-up maintenance in any areas that we have regrowth, and also a follow-up maintenance on the restoration area.
I just wanted to ask a clarification question just so that everybody understands. The areas that are indicated with letters are the areas that are going to be removed, vegetation removed.
Correct.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8, basically.
Yes.
Everybody understand that? Okay. You're finished, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. I'll open public comment. Seeing no speaker slips, I will close public comment. Bring it to the commission. Commissioner Arias, do you have any questions?
You're removing a certain amount of soil, and where is that going to?
The soil will go to the landfill, or not it will go to Marburg, or we have bids out right at the moment, bid requests out. We've spoken with Marburg regarding the disposal of the vegetation in the soil, and that's one of the places that it would be taken.
To our landfill.
It will be taken to Marburg, and there is a certain amount of recycling that's going to occur with the vegetation. And
in order for Marburg to accept it, they have to remove all the green material.
That I understand. I also
Yes.
know that it'll end up in the dump, literally.
Well,
Is that what you're selling us?
there are salts in the bird refuge. It's,
Yeah, will it end up in our dump, essentially?
I
The reason why I'm
believe-
asking is because our dump is almost full here in the
Okay.
city, and this is a large amount of stuff.
There is only, there will be much less than 1/10 of an acre. The culverts, there's another, if we want to take a look at this culvert, the only place where soil is being removed are within the 2 culverts, and it's less than 1/10 of an acre that's being removed out of there. And this culvert is approximately 100 feet long and ranges from about 10 feet to 16 feet wide. And that's it is a kind of a U-shaped bottom. It's not even a square bottom. So the volume that's in there, there's no sediment being removed or soil removed from the lake itself.
Yeah, that I understand.
Okay.
I'm just curious to know where the 453 cubic yards of silt, et cetera, will end up. That's my question. And what route are you going to be taking and things like that? And if you don't know the answer, then say you don't.
Rios.
That may not be what is important, but it is to me.
Okay.
And the other thing is, what do you estimate the silting occurs on this during say a 20-year storm, a 15-year storm?
I don't have the answer for that.
Okay.
I haven't done we haven't had a...
I just wondered how often you were going to have to redo this, because these areas do fill up.
Thank you. Commissioner Boucher, any questions? No. Commissioner Sharp?
None.
Murray?
No questions.
And Commissioner Lavoie?
No.
Commissioner Drury?
I do not.
Comments from anyone?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Lavoie?
I support this endeavor. It does nothing but enhance the viability of the slough and the wildlife and the vegetation that is in it, and I'd make a motion for an approval.
We have a motion by Lavoie and a second by Boucher. Do we need to make any findings on this, Ms. Gantz?
Nope, it would be just preliminary design approval and final approval.
Okay. Is that included in your motion,
Yes,
Commissioner
please.
Lavoie, and seconder, Commissioner Boucher? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Rios abstains. Motion carries. You understand the motion?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, and I will adjourn the Historic Landmarks Commission until, the next meeting, December 7th.